Chapter 12:24. Is it true? Before Song Ryu showed up, both the Qin family and the Zhu family were quite satisfied with Lin Su, their future daughter-in-law. Moreover, Lin Su had been through a lot with Qin Sheng over the years, which the Qin family and the Zhu family knew very well. Even though the Lin family had some grudges against Qin Sheng and looked down on him, they could understand it. Therefore, when Qin Sheng chose Song Ryu for some other reason and let Lin Su down, the Qin family and the Zhu family felt sorry for Lin Su and had been trying to make it up to her, even though she didn't need it. Therefore, the Qin family and the Zhu family could only make it up to the Lin family, which made the Lin family like a fish in water in Shanghai and the Yangtze River Delta. They had been a little worried about the ambiguous relationship between Qin Sheng and Lin Su. After all, the Song family was not an ordinary family. If they found out, it was very likely that these families would break up on bad terms. However, after Qin Sheng disappeared for 3 years, the Zhu family and the Qin family had become indifferent to some things. Moreover, Lin Su had given birth to Qin Sheng's child. What else could they do? Finally, and most importantly, Song Ryu had acquiesced to the existence of Lin Su and Yuan. What else could the Qin family and the Zhu family say? They could only turn a blind eye to it. Therefore, Qin Sheng told Qin Ran that Lin Su was going back to the United States and wanted to see her grandmother before leaving. Qin Ran didn't say much. After all, the old lady was very satisfied with Lin Su and Lin Su often visited her. However, it had never occurred to Qin Ran that Qin Sheng would ask Lin Su to bring Yuan here. This was definitely Qin Sheng's decision, because Lin Su would never do that. Doing so was tantamount to declaring war on Song Ryu and challenging the bottom line of several families. This would only make the Qin family and the Zhu family resent Lin Su. Lin Su was smart and wouldn't do this. At this moment, Yuan was in front of Qin Ran. Qin Ran, who was confused, was at a loss for a moment and had a complicated feeling. She was happy and worried at the same time. She was happy that she finally saw this pitiful little niece. In the past, she could only see her in photos or videos, but she never dared to meet her little niece. After all, she was still relatively rational and knew what would happen if she did this. Therefore, Qin Ran and the elders of the Qin and Zhu families all knew about Yuan's existence, but no one dared to meet her rashly. What she was worried about was that it was too risky for Lin Su to bring Yuan to Beijing to meet the old lady. If Lin Su came alone, Song Ryu would not say much even if she knew about it. After all, Song Ryu knew about the relationship between the old lady and Lin Su. But now that Yuan was here, the atmosphere was a little different. For a moment, Qin Ran did not know what to do. Qin Sheng was acting first and reporting later. At this time, it was Lin Su who broke the awkward atmosphere in the lounge. She whispered to Yuan, call me aunt. Yuan was actually a little afraid of strangers, not to mention that she could also feel that the atmosphere in the room was not right. Children were generally smarter. She still didn't know who this beautiful aunt in front of her was. She just grabbed her clothes with both hands and peeked carefully. It wasn't until her mother said this that Yuan realized that this beautiful aunt was actually her aunt. Yuan opened her big eyes and said in a childish voice, Auntie. Although Qin Ran was angry with Qin Sheng, her heart was completely melted by Yuan at this moment when she heard Yuan call her aunt. Moreover, she had always wanted to see Yuan, but she had no way to do so. Who wouldn't like such a beautiful and lovely little niece? To be honest, Lin Su really dressed Yuan up beautifully today, like a perfect little princess. Moreover, Yuan was so beautiful. Qin Ran slowly squatted down, touched Yuan's little head, and nodded with great emotion. Ah, Yuan is so obedient. Hearing this, Yuan was finally no longer nervous. In an instant, she smiled brightly, and the whole room seemed to be a little brighter. At this time, Lin Su took the initiative to say hello. Sister, long time no see. Lin Su was still so beautiful, but she was more elegant than before. She was elegant and dignified, full of feminine charm. How did Qin Shing cheat Lin Su back then? At this time, Qin Ran had already stood up with Yuan Yuan in her arms. She said with a little guilt, "Su, it's hard for you." Although it was just a short sentence, Lin Su was still very moved, because at least the Qin family did not ignore her existence. She shook her head and said, "No, it's not hard for me. I'm satisfied with Yuan Yuan." The more Lin Su behaved like this, the more Qin Ran felt sorry for her. Qin Ran had to look away and looked at Qin Shing, who had been standing there watching the show. The look in her eyes was very unpleasant, and it seemed that she wanted to tear Qin Shing apart with her eyes. Qin Shing was already a dead pig, not afraid of boiling water. Since he had already known this result, why should he be afraid to face his sister? Qin Ran had to ask, "Does Grandma know?" Qin Shing shook his head and replied, "No. She hasn't said it yet, and she doesn't dare to say it." Qin Ran sneered and said, "You know you don't dare to say it? Then how do you explain it? Sister, you go in with Lin Su and Yuan Yuan. I won't go in. If Grandma asks, Lin Su will know how to answer. When you see Grandma, I will come back to inquire about the news." Qin Shing had already arranged everything. Qin Ran was really angry. If Lin Su and Yuan Yuan had not been there to save Qin Shing some face, she would have really scolded Qin Shing. Qin Ran said to Qin Shing with disgust, "All right, you go to do your work first." Qin Shing hurriedly left. Before leaving, he hugged Yuan Yuan and kissed her. He just said that he was going to buy toys for Yuan Yuan. Fortunately, this little girl was still young. Otherwise, if she really understood a lot of things, she could not imagine how much she would complain about Qin Shing. In the ward, the old lady had already gotten up. She seemed to be in a good state of mind, at least much better than a few days ago. At this moment, the old lady was letting the medical staff read the news to her. Even at this age, the old lady still watched the news every day. This might be the habit that she had developed over the years. Knowing that her grandson and granddaughter were coming today, the old lady seemed to be in a good mood. In short, every time she was with the children, her face was always full of a kind smile. At this time, Qin Ran pushed the door open and came in. She smiled and shouted, "Grandma, your favorite granddaughter is here." The old lady was amused and shook her head. She found it funny and said, "Girl, you are already more than 30 years old. Why are you still like a child?" Qin Ran walked over, took the old lady's hand, and said in a spoiled manner, "Grandma, in front of you, I will always be a child who can't grow up." The old lady really did not know what to do with her. Seeing that Qin Ran had come, she took the initiative to leave. Seeing that Qin Shing did not come, the old lady frowned and asked, "Why didn't Qin Shing come? Didn't you call yesterday and say that you would come together?" Qin Ran explained with a smile, "Grandma, Qin Shing had something to do today. He said that he would come to see you after he was done. However, although Qin Shing did not come, someone who you might not have thought of came today. Guess who it is?" The old lady laughed and said, "Girl, how could I have thought of it? There are too many people I can't think of. Don't keep me guessing." Qin Ran did not keep her guessing anymore. She just looked at the door. At this time, Lin Su had already walked in slowly with Yuan Yuan. When the old lady saw Lin Su, the smile on her face instantly froze. Then she was stunned for a few seconds before she came to her senses. Then she shook her head and sighed bitterly. No one knew what she was thinking. However, after that, the old lady's eyes fell on the little girl that Lin Su was holding. It seemed that she was thinking about something. Lin Su had already walked to the side of the old lady's bed with Yuan Yuan. Lin Su said very generously, "Grandma, I'm here to see you. How are you now?" At this time, the old lady came to her senses. She quickly took Lin Su's hand and smiled kindly. "Lin Su, it turns out to be you. I really didn't expect it to be you. Why did you suddenly come?" "I didn't hear them say anything. Grandma, I'm going to the United States from Beijing the day after tomorrow. I heard from Qin Xing that you were in the hospital, so I wanted to come to the hospital to see you. In the past few years, I have been abroad and did not have time to see you. Just take advantage of this opportunity, Lin Su explained truthfully. The old lady said with a smile, "People are like this when they are old. I have already calculated that I can live one day at a time. You don't have to worry too much." "Grandma, you can't say that. You still have many years to live," Lin Su said obediently. The old lady just smiled happily, but it seemed that she was suffocating in her heart. There were some words that she was too embarrassed to say. She had to look at Yuan Yuan and asked very curiously, "Lin Su, who is this little girl?" "Grandma, she is my adopted daughter abroad. Her name is Yuan Yuan," Lin Su explained. She originally wanted to say that Yuan Yuan was her daughter, but she was afraid that the old lady would continue to ask and give herself away, so she had to say so. "Yuan Yuan, this is great-grandma," Lin Su said softly to Yuan Yuan. She did not know what to say. Anyway, it was either great-grandma or great-grandma. Yuan Yuan looked up at the old lady on the bed and said seriously, "Hello, great-grandma, I am Yuan Yuan." This sentence made the old lady smile from ear to ear. She laughed and said, "Oh, this little girl is not only beautiful but also sweet. She is really smart." The old lady laughed happily, and Yuan Yuan also laughed. Lin Su and Qin Ran, who were next to them, did not know whether to laugh or cry. It seemed that the old lady liked children the most. However, after the old lady finished laughing, the way she looked at Yuan Yuan seemed to be a little strange. But the old lady hid it well, so Qin Ran and Lin Su did not find it. The moment she saw Yuan Yuan, she suspected that Yuan Yuan might be Qin Xing and Lin Su's child. But Lin Su said that she was adopted. Besides, she had been in the United States for the past few years. Moreover, Qin Xing had been missing for 3 years. How could she be their child? But when Yuan Yuan laughed, the old lady suddenly found that Yuan Yuan looked a little like Qin Xing when he was a child. It seemed that Qin Xing also had such a smile when he was a child, and he was also so smart. Could it be true? Chapter 12:25. The more the old lady looked at her, the more she felt that Yuan Yuan was like Qin Xing when he was a child. But how was it possible? She couldn't ask directly, could she? Even if she asked, could Lin Su admit it? In the end, the old lady could only hide these doubts in her heart and find a chance to ask Qin Xing or others to see if they really hid it from her. The old lady liked children very much. Every time the great-grandchildren came to see her, the old lady would talk with them for a long time. She didn't think they were too noisy. In the end, she took them away because she was afraid that they would disturb her rest. It seemed that she hadn't seen these little guys for a while. She was not in good health these days, so they didn't let the children come over. So today, when she saw Yuan Yuan, who was also a child, the old lady liked her very much. Whether she was Qin Xing's daughter or not, who wouldn't like such a beautiful little girl? Just like Qin Xing when he was a child, who wouldn't like him? Whose little girl is this? She is so beautiful, like a doll. The old lady couldn't help touching Yuan Yuan's little face and said, To be honest, Yuan Yuan was really the most beautiful little girl the old lady had ever seen. Yuan Yuan opened her big eyes and replied like a little adult, Great-grandma, you are also beautiful. Yuan Yuan's sudden words made the old lady laugh. Even Lin Su was a little surprised. She really didn't know where Yuan Yuan learned these words. Qin Ran also couldn't help laughing. Yuan Yuan was really like Qin Xing when he was a child, clever and eccentric. The old lady smiled and reached out her hands. Come on, let me hug you. Oh, it's a pity that we are in the hospital. I don't have a gift for you. When I get out of the hospital, I will make it up to Yuan Yuan. Seeing that the old lady liked Yuan Yuan so much, Lin Su was very happy. This was the blood of the Qin family and the Zhu family. Perhaps this was the reason why the old lady, and Yuan Yuan were naturally close to each other because they were related by blood. Seeing that her grandmother was going to bend over to hug Yuan Yuan, Qin Ran quickly picked Yuan Yuan up and let her sit on the bed, so that her grandmother could hug Yuan Yuan. Great-grandma, Yuan Yuan doesn't want a gift. Mom said that if I am sick, I should get better soon, Yuan Yuan said very seriously. After saying this, she did not forget to take the initiative to kiss the old lady's cheek. This action warmed the old lady in an instant. The old lady smiled from ear to ear, and said that Yuan Yuan was so beautiful. After playing with Yuan Yuan for a while, the old lady looked at Lin Su and said, "Lin Su, when did you come back?" "At the beginning of the month," Lin Su said softly. "Have you seen Qin Sheng?" the old lady asked again. Lin Su did not hide anything and answered truthfully, "Yes." The old lady nodded silently. After a moment of silence she said, "Lin Su, all these years, I have always felt a little guilty towards you. I just never had the chance to apologize to you. I hope you don't blame me. There are some things that I can't do." Lin Su knew what the old lady was talking about. Lin Su had long been indifferent to what had happened in the past. She said calmly, "Grandma, it's all in the past. I'm sorry, I'm the one who let you down," the old lady said emotionally. She knew how much Lin Su had sacrificed for Qin Sheng and how much they had been through. However, Lin Su really did not blame the old lady. She would not blame anyone from the Qin family or the Zhu family, because they all did it for Qin Sheng's sake. That was enough. Qin Ran was afraid that her grandma would be too excited, so she said worriedly, "Grandma, take care of yourself." The old lady then calmed down and said, "You're going to the United States the day after tomorrow. Take good care of yourself when you're alone outside. If you need any help, you can tell Qin Ran and the others. It's our way of making it up to you." Lin Su did not refuse. Besides, in recent years, the Qin family and the Zhu family had taken care of the Lin family and her in all aspects. "Grandma, you too. Listen to the doctor and get better soon," Lin Su replied. The old lady smiled and did not say anything. She could live one day at a time. She had long been indifferent to it. The old lady did not want the atmosphere to be too sad, because she felt that Yuan Yuan's smile had disappeared in her arms. She refocused her attention on Yuan Yuan and asked her a lot of strange questions. Yuan Yuan's answers were also imaginative. The old lady and the young girl played like this until the medical staff came in and signaled that it was time for the old lady to rest. Lin Su and Yuan Yuan left reluctantly. Yuan Yuan also promised the old lady that she would come to see the old lady as soon as she returned to China. After Yuan Yuan left, the old lady felt a little disappointed for a moment, but she soon adjusted her mood. However, doubts came to her mind again. Was Yuan Yuan really Qin Sheng and Lin Su's daughter? If she was, she seemed to be a little happy, but she was more worried. After all, too many things were involved. If she was not, she would feel a little regretful. In the end, the old lady could only sigh and think about it when she saw Qin Sheng. After coming out of the hospital, Qin Ran personally sent Lin Su and Yuan Yuan away. She was really reluctant to part with Yuan Yuan. After all, she was her niece. It was the first time she had seen Yuan Yuan since she was born. Qin Ran felt very sorry for Yuan Yuan. She said that she would take Yuan Yuan to the square, as if she was going to buy all the things Yuan Yuan liked. It seemed that she would feel better in this way. However, at this time, Yuan Yuan was still not used to seeing the Qin family and the Zhu family. Maybe for many years in the future, Yuan Yuan would have to hide her identity, even if everyone knew it. "I can see that Grandma likes Yuan Yuan very much." After telling the driver the destination, Qin Ran was reluctant to let go of Yuan Yuan. She was a little worried just now. Lin Su looked at the well-behaved Yuan Yuan and said, "It's a pity that Yuan Yuan can't come to see Grandma often." This time when Yuan Yuan came to Beijing, Lin Su was already very satisfied that she could see her aunt and great-grandma. It also made up for many of Yuan Yuan's regrets. At least Qin Sheng let Yuan Yuan know that these relatives, whom she could not see often, all liked her very much. Qin Ran did not dwell on this topic. She just said, "If I have time in the future, I will go to Los Angeles to see you. The Qin family owes you too much." Qin Sheng gave me Yuan Yuan. "That's enough," Lin Su replied. Qin Ran said thoughtfully, "I have discussed with Uncle before. We will transfer some of the Qin family's real estate in the United States to you and Yuan Yuan. Don't refuse. This is the only thing we can do, because Yuan Yuan's surname is Qin." Lin Su smiled faintly. Qin Sheng had already told her about these things. She could only accept it calmly. "Well, let's not talk about these things. Our Yuan Yuan doesn't like to hear these things." Qin Ran saw Yuan Yuan's big eyes and a little confused look. She said with a smile, "Yuan Yuan, what do you want to eat at noon? Aunt will take you to eat delicious food." Yuan Yuan immediately began to count her family treasures, which made Qin Ran pinch her little round face. In the afternoon, when Qin Ran and Lin Su took Yuan Yuan to the amusement park, Qin Sheng went to the hospital alone. He knew that his grandmother must be full of doubts. When Qin Sheng arrived at the hospital, the old lady was resting. He waited outside for half an hour. When the old lady woke up and knew that Qin Sheng was here, she immediately asked the medical staff to call Qin Sheng in. Qin Sheng did not behave differently than usual. After greeting the old lady, he asked about her physical condition in the past 2 days. Then he sat beside her and began to read the news to the old lady. The old lady was a little angry. Shouldn't he take the initiative to tell these things? So she said unhappily, "Qin Sheng, don't you have anything to say to me?" Qin Sheng instantly understood what his grandmother meant, but he deliberately played dumb. "Grandma, what's the matter?" "What's the matter? I am your grandmother. I have held you every day since you were a child. Others may not know, but how can I not know?" Since Qin Sheng played dumb, the old lady played along and deliberately tricked Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng did not speak, but he did not know what to say. After seeing Qin Sheng's expression, the old lady completely understood and murmured, "It seems that I guessed right." For a moment, the old lady did not know what to say. This was indeed a troublesome matter. Qin Sheng was afraid that his grandmother would be emotional, so he had to take the initiative to admit, "Grandma, I was wrong." Chapter 12:26. Qin Sheng wanted to hide it from his grandmother as much as possible. He really didn't want her to know the truth. He was also worried that his grandmother would think too much, and her body would not be able to bear it. At that time, he would become a sinner. His original purpose was to let his grandmother meet Yuan Yuan. She was his grandmother and his daughter. Of course, they had to meet each other. Besides, his grandmother was not in good health, and Yuan Yuan was going back to the United States. No one knew whether they could meet each other or not. Yuan Yuan was his daughter. Although she was not officially recognized and not many people knew about her, he wanted to give Yuan Yuan recognition. He wanted Yuan Yuan to see her grandmother as a form of recognition. This way, he could make up for the guilt he felt towards Lin Su and Yuan Yuan. However, he didn't expect that his grandmother could guess that Yuan Yuan was his daughter. Now that she had guessed it, Qin Sheng could only tell the truth. Qin Sheng was like a child who had done something wrong. He lowered his head and did not know how to explain after admitting his mistake. Seeing Qin Sheng like this, the old lady was not angry anymore. Moreover, she was also indifferent to many things, so she was not really angry. She was just a little worried. After all, the old lady had thought about this before. If it was true, she would be happy and worried. If it was not true, she would be a little disappointed. "Alas I really don't know what to say. If I didn't find that Yuan Yuan looked more like you when you were young, would you have kept it from me?" the old lady said helplessly. Of course, Qin Sheng would not tell the truth. He just explained, I didn't want to keep it from you. I just couldn't find the right opportunity to tell you, Grandma. Do you all know but I don't? The old lady questioned. Qin Shing shook his head and said, Few people know. Only my uncle, my aunt, my sister, and a few others know. Of course, I dare not tell others about it. Sure enough, it was similar to what the old lady had guessed. Thinking of this, she was not angry with Qin Shing, but a little angry with others. She had to teach them a lesson. Qin Shing was not sensible, but the elders were all brainless. Now tell me, what on earth is going on? The old lady stared at Qin Shing and said. As a result, Qin Shing told the cause and effect of everything with a serious face. This was his grandmother, the one who loved him the most. There was nothing that he could not say, and there was nothing that he could not hide. After Qin Shing finished talking about everything, Qin Shing's eyes lit up. The old lady let out a long sigh and said, Alas, Lin Su has not had it easy all these years. She stayed in the United States to raise the baby alone and took care of the child alone for 2 years. Everything is because of you. Qin Shing said somewhat emotionally, Grandma, I know that I've let Lin Su down for the rest of my life. I have nothing to give her. I can't let her wait for me alone all the time. This sin is too deep. I can't pay it back. The only thing I can give her is a child. She only needs Yuan, and that's enough. The old lady nodded silently and said, Yes, she doesn't need anything, but she loves you deeply. You guys are really lucky. With Yuan, Lin Su has hope to live. Old Mrs. Han could understand Lin Su's love for Qin Shing. Even if she could not be with Qin Shing, she would not be with anyone else. In this life, there was only Qin Shing. There was no color in living like this. The old lady thought of something else. If something had really happened to Qin Shing back then, Yuan would be the only descendant of Qin Shing in this world. Whether it was the Qin family or the Zhu family, they would recognize this child and bring Yuan back as soon as possible. But fortunately, Qin Shing was fine. However, the biggest problem now was that Yuan's existence was very unfair to Ryu. If the Song family knew about it, it would be terrible. Could Qin Shing and Ryu still get married? Ryu was a proud girl. How could she tolerate such a thing? The old lady said worriedly, Now that no one can change this thing, we can only go on like this. But in a short time, the Zhu family and the Qin family definitely can't recognize Yuan. Otherwise, this thing will become a big deal. You can only continue to hide it. Don't let Ryu and the Song family know about it. Understand? Qin Shing hesitated for a moment and said, Grandma, in fact, there is one thing I haven't told you. The old lady immediately frowned and said, You still have something to hide from me, right? This thing is big enough. Your grandma can't bear your surprise. Qin Shing looked at the old lady seriously and said, Grandma, actually it's nothing. Don't worry too much. I just want to tell you that Ryu knows about Yuan's existence. After hearing this, the old lady did not react at first and was about to say something. But after 2 seconds, she realized what this sentence meant. Instantly, she was stunned and speechless. Qin Shing asked in a hurry, Grandma, what's wrong with you? Ryu actually knew about Yuan's existence, and even acquiesced to Yuan's existence. What was going on? Was she still the same Ryu? After a long time, the old lady finally came to her senses. She directly waved her hand and asked Qin Shing to leave. She said, Okay, I got it. This is the business of you young people. I can't care about it and I don't want to care about it. Don't tell me about these things in the future. Seeing that his grandma was fine, Qin Shing quickly got up and was ready to leave. Today's thing really had a big impact on his grandma and made her a little tired. It was better for him to leave as soon as possible. When he was about to walk out of the door, the old lady stopped him again and said, Send me some photos of Yuan. It would be better if there are videos. When Qin Shing heard this, he couldn't help laughing. It seemed that his grandma liked Yuan very much. In the future, he would often send his grandma Yuan's news. After leaving the hospital, this thing was finally over. Qin Shing also let out a long sigh of relief. After that, Qin Shing directly went to find Lin Su and Yuan. He already knew that his sister, Lin Su and Yuan were together. When he found them, he didn't expect that Yaya was also there. At this time, she was playing with Yuan. Qin Shing didn't expect that his sister also told Ye. However, when Qin Shing saw Yaya immediately signaled Qin Shing with her eyes. The meaning was very clear. I will keep it a secret. Qin Shing had no choice. When eating, Yuan insisted on sitting next to Qin Shing. Qin Shing fed Yuan and asked with a smile, Yuan, today you have 2 aunts and a great-grandma. Are you happy? Yuan nodded hard and replied, Daddy, Yuan is very happy. Yuan likes aunts and great-grandma. Can I often play with them in the future? Although he knew it was difficult, Qin Shing had to agree. Qin Jing said with a smile, Yuan, big aunt and little aunt also like Yuan. Auntie will often go to see you in the future. She will also bring you all kinds of delicious food and fun things, okay? Yuan nodded happily and said, okay. After dinner, Qin Shing, Qin Ran, and Qin Jing sent Lin Su and Yuan back to Xueqingyan's place. Qin Shing would not accompany them today. He would directly pick Lin Su and Yuan up to the airport the day after tomorrow. After sending Lin Su and Yuan off, Qin Shing directly went back to the West Mountain villa of the Qin family. On the way back, Qin Jing kept talking about all kinds of strange things about Yuan. She also said that she had always dreamed of having a little niece like Yuan. If her brother had a little nephew in the future, it would be perfect. She would definitely spoil her little niece and nephew. Qin Shing smiled helplessly. Whether it was Yuan or Song Ryu's children in the future, they would be greatly spoiled. As a father, he would definitely meet all their wishes. Qin Ran asked calmly, What did you say to Grandma in the afternoon? Qin Shing knew that his sister was investigating. He felt ashamed and said, I told her the truth. Everything? Qin Ran asked doubtfully. Qin Shing nodded and said, Yes, I told her everything, including that Ryu knew about it. How did Grandma react? Qin Ran frowned and asked. Qin Shing replied, She was disappointed and scolded me several times. You still know about it? If anything happens to Grandma, I won't forgive you, Qin Ran said angrily. Qin Shing quickly apologized and said, Sister, I know I was wrong. I will discuss other things with you in the future. Qin Ran did not bother to pay attention to him. When Qin Shing and the others went home, they found that Qin Chongxing and Zhao Anji had already come back. It turned out that the 4th master would be buried in Beijing tomorrow, so they came back to see him off. However, this time, Qin Chongxing and Zhao Anji did not let the younger generation go. They just said that the 2 elders would go to see them off. The Chern family did not want too many people to go, so they only invited a few familiar elders to see them off. Qin Shing did not say anything. It seemed that first uncle and first aunt should have met the elders of the Chern family later and had a good chat with them. The next day, when Qin Shing went out, the others were no longer at home. Qin Shing went directly to the company and was busy for the whole day. There were indeed a lot of things that he needed to take over and understand. After all, he would be officially employed in the future. Another day passed. At the beginning of a new day, when the sun had just risen, Qin Shing had already set off for Xueqingyan's home, ready to pick up Lin Su and Yuan to go to the airport. Yesterday, he did not accompany Lin Su and Yuan. On the one hand, he did not want to be discovered by others if he stayed with Yuan for a long time. On the other hand, he was afraid that if he stayed with Yuan for too long, he would really be reluctant to let her go. Even so, after Qin Shing set off today, he felt very depressed. This was his biological daughter. From the time she was born to the present, He had only been with her for a few days. It was not long before she was going to leave again. How could Qin Shing be willing to let her go? At the thought of the scene of parting at the airport, Qin Shing had the impulse to let Lin Su and Yuan Yuan stay in the country. But he knew that it was not the right time, so he could only restrain his impulse. He hoped that Yuan Yuan would not blame him for being an incompetent father. Chapter 12:27. Since he met Yuan Yuan, Qin Shing had this kind of emotion. He had never felt this way before. Maybe every father was like this, who would be willing to be separated from their daughter. Moreover, Qin Shing had only been with his daughter for a few days since she was born, which was far from enough. Which father was as incompetent as him? Therefore, Qin Shing was full of guilt for Yuan Yuan. Qin Ran and Qin Jing also wanted to see Yuan Yuan off, but they were worried that it would be too high profile if they were seen by their acquaintances. After all, they knew too many people in Siju City. At present, except for Qin Shing, Qin Ran, Qin Jing, Xue Qinyan and the old lady knew that Lin Su and Yuan Yuan came to Beijing this time. As for the others, they hid it. When Qin Shing arrived at Xue Qinyan's house, Yuan Yuan saw her father and ran over, shouting, "Dad!" Qin Shing picked up Yuan Yuan, who was dressed beautifully, and asked gently, "I haven't seen you for a day. Did you miss me?" Yuan Yuan rubbed her father's beard with her little face and said, "Yes, I missed you after you left for a while. Mom missed you too." After saying this, Yuan Yuan seemed to be a little disappointed. She lowered her head and fell silent. Qin Shing frowned and said, "What's wrong? Who bullied my baby? Dad will avenge you." Yuan Yuan shook her head and whispered, "No one bullied me, Dad." Yuan Yuan can't see Dad for a long time, right? Yuan Yuan is reluctant to leave Dad, and Mom is reluctant to leave Dad. Her words broke Qin Shing's heart. He quickly comforted her. How could it be possible? Dad had something to do before, so I didn't see Yuan Yuan for such a long time. Now I'm not as busy as before. I will see Yuan Yuan and Mom when I have time. So Yuan Yuan, be obedient and wait for Dad to come to you. Yuan Yuan raised her head and asked weakly, "Really?" Qin Shing touched her head and said, "Of course, Dad won't lie to Yuan Yuan." Yuan Yuan finally smiled and said, "All right." At this time, Xue Qinyan took the initiative to carry Yuan Yuan over. Qin Shing slowly walked to Lin Su, who was looking at them with a smile. Today, Lin Su was dressed in black, looking very dignified and elegant, exuding the glory of motherhood. Qin Shing asked lightly, "Have you packed everything?" "I don't have many things. I packed them up when I was in Shanghai," Lin Su replied softly. Qin Shing hugged Lin Su gently and whispered in her ear, "Take care of yourself and Yuan Yuan. Wait for me in Los Angeles." "Yes." Lin Su nodded. Qin Shing let out a long sigh and said, "Give me some more time. When the time is right, I will take you back to China." "Okay," Lin Su replied simply. She was not being perfunctory, but she trusted him. It was almost time. Xue Qinyan came over to urge them to set off. Only then did they set off for the airport with their luggage. Parting always brought sadness. Moreover, Qin Shing and Lin Su had been apart more often than not. Therefore, on the way to the airport, the atmosphere in the car was relatively quiet. Even Yuan Yuan seldom spoke. It seemed that she was a little reluctant to part with Qin Shing. He had to cherish these last moments silently. Finally, they arrived at the airport. Qin Shing had already arranged in advance to board the plane at the business building for VIP guests. In this way, he could save trouble and avoid being seen by others. After the check-in, Qin Shing sent Lin Su and Yuan Yuan to the security checkpoint. Lin Su finally couldn't help it. She put down the luggage in her hand, turned around, and directly hugged Qin Shing. All the reluctance to part with him completely broke out at this moment. She had waited for him for 3 years, and it was the kind of waiting that she did not know whether she would live or die. These 3 years of lovesickness were so unforgettable. The yearning day and night was enough to swallow her up. However, after 3 years, they had only reunited for a few days. They had to part again. Lin Su was reluctant and unwilling. She wanted to stay with Qin Sheng for a few more days, even if it was just 1 or 2 more days. I don't want to leave. I can't bear to leave you, Lin Su said with red eyes. She hugged Qin Sheng tightly as if she wanted to merge the two of them together. At this time, Yuan also cried. She grabbed Qin Sheng's clothes and shouted, "Daddy, Daddy, I want Daddy to hug me." This scene made Xue Qinyan a little move. Although Lin Su was wearing sunglasses, Qin Sheng could still feel that her tears had wet his shoulders. He was a little at a loss for a moment. He did not know how to comfort Lin Su, nor did he know whether to comfort Lin Su or Yuan first. Qin Sheng gritted his teeth and said, Su, believe me. When I'm done with my work, I'll go to see you." Yuan was still crying. Lin Su held back her emotions and let go of Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng first helped her wipe her tears. Then he picked Yuan up and comforted her. Yuan, don't cry. Yuan, don't cry. Daddy promised Yuan. I'll go to see Yuan soon, okay? Yuan still kept crying. Maybe it was because she had been holding it in all the way, or because she saw her mother crying, or because she was going to be separated from her father, that she finally could not hold it in anymore. Qin Sheng's heart was broken. Seeing Yuan's sad look was really more painful than being cut by a knife. Therefore, Lin Su, who originally needed Qin Sheng to comfort her, could only comfort her daughter first. Yuan was her sweetheart. On normal days, when she saw her frowning and unhappy, she would feel sorry for her, let alone cry. After a long time, everyone finally calmed Yuan down. Yuan stopped crying. Qin Sheng held her in his arms. She hugged Qin Sheng's neck tightly. Her eyes were still so watery. This pitiful look really made people feel sorry for her. Yuan, we should go. If we don't go now, it will be too late. Although Lin Su could not bear to disturb her, time was indeed a little tight. Yuan still did not let go, as if saying that it would be better if they could not go. Xue Qinyan also said, Yuan, be obedient. Daddy will go to see you after a while, okay? Yuan still did not let go. No matter what Xue Qinyan or Lin Su said, Yuan stubbornly held Qin Sheng, and did not let go, which was quite like Qin Sheng's temper. Qin Sheng thought for a moment and whispered in Yuan's ear. Yuan stared at him and asked, "Really?" Qin Sheng nodded without hesitation. Yuan then let go of Qin Sheng and was held in Lin Su's arms. "Then, let's go," Lin Su looked at Qin Sheng and said, gritting her teeth. Qin Sheng suppressed his emotions and said, "Well, tell us when we arrive." Lin Su and Yuan waved to Qin Sheng and Xue Qinyan at the same time, and then turned and walked into the security check without hesitation. Lin Su did not look back again. She was afraid that she would really not go, but Yuan looked back 3 times at every step. In the end, she pouted and cried, but she was strong enough not to cry. Qin Sheng could not stand it anymore. He turned around and no longer looked at them, quietly wiping the tears from the corners of his eyes. His heart as a father had been broken into pieces at this moment. When Lin Su and Yuan disappeared completely after the security check, Xue Qinyan patted Qin Sheng on the shoulder and said, "They have left. Qin Sheng, you also have this day. I thought you were not afraid of anything, but I did not expect that you would be defeated by a little girl." Qin Sheng smiled bitterly and said, "Although I have not completely accepted the fact that I am a father, and I did not expect that such a beautiful and lovely little princess would be my daughter, when I saw her smile, my heart melted, and when I saw her cry, my heart also broke. Thinking that it will be a long time before I see her again, I feel sad. Every father is like this. So, you have a concern in your heart, and do not dare to disappear in the future," Xue Qinyan said. Qin Sheng nodded and said, No, this time I really won't. On the way out of the airport, Xue Qinyan could not help but ask, I heard that the wedding date has been set. When are you going to get married? Where are you going to get married? Are you going to invite me? Yes, soon. My family is already preparing. At present, it is tentatively planned to be held in Beijing. At first, we considered holding it in Hainan or other places, but many relatives and friends are busy with work and have high positions. We do not dare to delay their work, Qin Xing said truthfully. Even if we don't invite others, we will definitely invite you, sister. Qin Xing was telling the truth. Not to mention others, the elders of both sides were not ordinary people. The security alone was enough to give people a headache, not to mention that old Master Song and old Lady Zhu would also be there. It was impossible for them to just leave the capital. Therefore, they could only get married in Beijing. Xue Qinyan did not delve into this matter, but changed the topic and asked, Since you and Song Ryu are married, when are you going to hold a wedding for Su? She can give up the title and share, but giving her a wedding can be considered as compensation, right? Of course, Qin Xing knew what Xue Qinyan meant. This wedding was just a formality, and maybe not many people would attend at all, but it meant a different thing to Lin Su. After thinking for a while, Qin Xing replied firmly, I will. Lin Su and Yuan left with Qin Xing's heart. In addition, Song Ryu was very busy during this period, so Qin Xing could only devote his time to work. Secondly, he had to cooperate with his family to prepare for the wedding. After all, Song Ryu had no time to care about these things. He could only talk about these things when Qin Xing occasionally went to see her. The wedding date was getting closer and closer, and the wedding was getting busier and busier. Song Ryu could finally rest for a few days, but she did not have time to discuss the wedding. Instead, she took Qin Xing to see her teacher. This was what they had promised before. Although Qin Xing had known it for a long time, he could not help but feel a little nervous. This was a big boss whom he admired from the bottom of his heart. Chapter 12:28. Last night, Qin Xing had picked Song Ryu up and brought her back to Diaoyutai No. 1 courtyard. During this period, he had not seen Song Ryu at all. He could see how busy Song Ryu had been during this period. She had been studying, investigating, and doing research. This might be the busiest period since she started working. As the wedding day approached, Qin Xing and Song Ryu didn't have to do anything. Most of the things were handled by the Qin and Song families. Qin Ran, Qin Jing, and the two cousin-in-laws of the Zhu family helped them with the rest. However, this was their wedding after all, and they still needed to decide some things. For example, the wedding theme, and so on. Qin Ran, Qin Jing, and the other cousin-in-laws wanted to discuss these trivial things with Qin Xing and Song Ryu. Unexpectedly, Song Ryu told Qin Xing about this last night, so he had to postpone other things. When Qin Xing got up and came back from jogging, Song Ryu had already prepared breakfast. It was probably a lifelong dream of many men to have such a goddess as a good wife and mother, but Qin Xing had realized it so easily. When she was at work, Song Ryu always dressed more formally. After all, in such an environment, she had to abide by some unwritten rules. However, when she was at home or resting, Song Ryu dressed more casually. She didn't have so many scruples, even when meeting her teacher today. In contrast, Qin Xing dressed more formally. After all, it was Song Ryu's teacher, not his. He had to leave a good impression. Moreover, he didn't know the teacher's attitude toward him. Maybe her attitude toward him was related to some overt or covert attitude toward the Qin family. Qin Xing dared not to be careless. The meeting place was booked by the teacher. Song Ryu and Qin Xing set off in advance, because she knew how busy the teacher was. She couldn't let the teacher wait for them. Who knew whether there would be a traffic jam on the road? They had met a long time ago, but the teacher was busy and couldn't confirm her schedule. That was why they had to meet today. Qin Xing didn't dare to drive a flashy car to meet Song Ryu's teacher. He just drove Song Ryu's ordinary Volkswagen, but there were many passes on the windshield, which might be more flashy than any other car. Song Ryu was wearing light makeup today. Maybe she only put on makeup every time she went out with Qin Xing. She had worked in the company for so many years, but she almost never put on makeup. Maybe she didn't want others to pay more attention to her appearance. She hoped that people would pay more attention to her working ability. Of course, she never denied that being beautiful would bring her a lot of convenience. This was true for anyone who was beautiful. Sometimes, being beautiful could also become a hindrance. Qin Xing drove steadily. They didn't buy anything. In fact, Qin Xing asked politely, but Song Ryu said that the teacher was strict in this aspect. No matter who they were not allowed to bring anything home. In the past, Song Ryu had occasionally gone to her teacher's house to freeload meals, but she always ate empty-handed, which made her a little embarrassed. Ryu, do I need to pay attention to anything? Qin Xing, who was driving, could not help but ask. Song Ryu did not say anything, which made Qin Xing somewhat uneasy, even though he was used to seeing the world. Song Ryu stared at Qin Xing with a faint smile and said, "You're not afraid of anything. Do you still need to be careful?" It was rare for Song Ryu to make a joke, but unfortunately, Qin Xing was a little overwhelmed. "Don't make fun of me. That's your teacher, the big boss I admired when I was in school. How can I not be nervous?" Qin Xing said, feeling like crying but having no tears. Song Ryu smiled and said, "You don't need to pay attention to anything. My teacher is easy to get along with. You just answer whatever he asks you. He didn't ask you about your work." Qin Xing thought about it and felt a little relieved. They met in an alley on the right side of Fuyo Street. There was a reason why they chose this alley. After all, it was the safest place. There were police cars and plainclothes patrolling everywhere. They didn't need to muster so many people if they went to other places. Their car was stopped at the entrance of the alley. After reporting to the police and checking their IDs, Song Ryu and Qin Xing walked over. This was a very ordinary bookstore. Most of the books sold were old books. The owner was an old man who was over 70 years old. He used to be a staff member of the Ministry of Ministries and Commissions. After his retirement, he opened a bookstore here. He was an old acquaintance of Song Ryu's teacher. The bookstore did not sell any best-selling books and so on. Relatively speaking, there were very few literary works. Most of them were historical and philosophical ancient books and so on. They were also old books collected from other places. Business could only be considered average. Most of the customers who came were repeat customers, but the price of each book was not cheap. The owner lived in a family compound nearby. Every month, he could earn a lot of retirement salary for his parents. So he didn't rely on this bookstore to support his family, but to kill time. This reminded Qin Xing of his previous life in Chengdu. However, compared with that bookstore, this bookstore was more natural. The only similarity was that there were cats in this bookstore. The cat in this bookstore was a little tabby cat. There were security guards near the entrance. Fortunately, Qin Xing didn't ask Lao Chong to come with him today. Otherwise, he would have been stopped. The owner was drinking tea and playing with the cat at the entrance. It seemed that this episode didn't disturb his daily life at all. He didn't deliberately change anything because of the identity of the man inside. It seemed that he had long been used to this kind of life. Qin Xing and Song Ryu nodded to the old man politely. The old man just nodded back with a smile. Then he closed his eyes, basked in the sun, and played with the cat in his hand. He really looked like a master living in seclusion. The bookstore was neither small nor large. Whether it was the hall outside or the two small halls inside, there were all kinds of books everywhere. The fragrance of the books was overwhelming. As soon as Qin Xing stepped into the bookstore, he saw a man holding a book in his hand in the small hall not far away. The man was a little thin, wearing glasses and a very simple gray coat, which seemed to be the standard for leaders. He was carefully reading the book in his hand. Qin Shing stopped in his tracks subconsciously. This was the man he admired quite a lot. He could be considered as his senior. In terms of age, this senior was now over 60 years old. It was just that he was in a high position. Song Ryu held Qin Shing's hand and smiled at him. Then she led Qin Shing to the teacher unhurriedly. When they were about to get close, Song Ryu took the initiative to call out, "Teacher, are you looking for books here again?" The man who was over 60 years old turned around. He looked at Song Ryu and then Qin Shing and said in a low voice, "You're here. Let's sit down and talk." The man was very elegant and looked approachable. However, his superior aura could make people feel dignified without being angry. This kind of contradictory but reasonable feeling made Qin Shing more and more nervous. After all, this teacher's life experience was unique. There were only 2 desks in the bookstore. At this time, someone had already made tea. After the man sat down, Qin Shing and Song Ryu sat opposite to him. After sitting down, the man looked at Qin Shing and said with a smile, "Qin Shing." Qin Shing replied in a hurry, "Hello, senior." The man said half-jokingly, "Well, I heard from Ryu that you graduated from the Department of Philosophy, so it's reasonable for you to call me senior. This is fate. I didn't expect that the one who took away my favorite student would be a junior of mine." This made Qin Shing a little less nervous. He replied with a smile, "You're already a legend in our school. I call you senior, which is a bit too close to you." "Ryu, I don't mind," the man said disapprovingly. Then he continued, "I wanted to see you for a long time, but I had no choice but to postpone it until today. Don't blame me for choosing this place. There are too many things to do today, and I don't want to be in trouble." Song Ryu smiled sweetly and said, "Teacher, your work is more important. It doesn't matter whether you see him or not. You're going to get married soon. As your teacher, I have to check on you." The man chuckled. It seemed that his attitude towards Song Ryu was quite gentle, a bit like a senior to a junior. The man looked at Song Ryu thoughtfully and said, "But you're always a stubborn child. It's hard for others to change your mind. Even if I don't agree, you won't change your mind, right?" This sentence directly made Qin Shing nervous. Was Song Ryu's teacher not satisfied with him? Was she beating him up or testing him? "Teacher, how could you not agree? You're going to be our witness," Song Ryu said with a smile, calmly resolving the problem. Witness? Song Ryu hadn't told Qin Shing about this. It was also the first time that Qin Shing had heard about it, which somewhat surprised him. However, to be able to have this man in front of her as a witness, she didn't know how many people dreamed of it. The man chuckled and said, "Ryu, I haven't agreed yet. Let's talk about it later." The man didn't make a firm promise. He just made it up casually. "Okay." Song Ryu nodded. She didn't take her teacher's words seriously. At this time, the man took a sip of tea, looked at Song Ryu, and said, "Ryu, last time I saw an annotated version of university chapters. I don't know where Lao Jing got it, but it seems that there are a lot of annotations. Can you help me find it?" After hearing this, Song Ryu stood up happily and then walked to the small room where there were ancient books. Many of her reading habits were learned from her teacher, which had benefited her for the rest of her life. After Song Ryu left, Qin Shing immediately became nervous. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that the man had sent Song Ryu away on purpose to have a formal talk with him. He couldn't help but become serious. To be honest, Qin Shing didn't have the slightest confidence to face this man. However, he had to face him. There was no other way. Moreover, he had already imagined all kinds of situations that might happen when he met this man, including what kind of topics they would talk about. Thinking of this, Qin Shing also became calm. 7017K. Chapter 1229. The Dream of Scholars and National Scholars. Qin Shing inexplicably thought of this sentence. which seemed to be the life trajectory of the man in front of him who made him respect him from the bottom of his heart. Or maybe it was because the man talked about Zhu Shi's great university chapters and sentences, that Qin Shing also thought of a sentence in Great University. Knowledge comes after things, and sincerity comes after knowing. Sincerity comes after the heart, and righteousness comes after the heart. 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 The ancients thousands of years ago had already pointed out the direction of life in detail. This was a beautiful ladder of life. It could be said that the thoughts of Xiu Qi and Zhiping had cast the personality psychology of generation after generation of intellectuals. Even today it was still imperceptible. It could be said that out of 10 people, 9 scholars. However, how many people could realize the dream of scholars and national scholars? The talented man in front of him was definitely one of those who could be called national scholars. Although Qin Shing had already thought of the topics that they might talk about, and he was calm enough in his heart, after all, he was facing this man. Qin Shing still had to be 120% alert. I heard from Ruyu that you studied philosophy in Fudan University? The man put down the teacup and asked casually. Qin Shing answered truthfully, I studied philosophy and logic, which is philosophy plus other subjects, such as science plus mathematics, science plus physics. But most of the time, I go to other colleges to take classes. This subject didn't exist before. It should have been established a few years ago. But it is also a trend of the times. It seems that philosophy can indeed be combined with every subject. Many of those top figures in the industry have learned a lot from philosophy. The man nodded silently. He did not think that Qin Shing did not study pure philosophy. So far, many people did not understand why Qin Shing studied philosophy. Qin Shing's explanation was that it was relatively simple, easy to be lazy, and not so tired. After all, he had read more Taoist and Buddhist classics since he was a child, and these books were inextricably linked to philosophy. Only Qin Shing knew why. The reason was all because of his grandfather. Qin Shing did not say anything. How dare he talk nonsense in front of the big boss? Ryu said that you also like reading? The man continued to chat. Qin Shing said with a smile, I don't dare to show off in front of my teacher. Ryu has read a lot more books than I do. However, when I was in college, I read my teacher's book, The Logic of Politics, which benefited me a lot. Oh, you've read this book? The man didn't seem surprised and chuckled. Qin Shing continued, but compared to this book, I prefer a sentence that my teacher once said. At this moment, Qin Shing had already followed Ru Yu and called the man teacher, naturally, because it seemed that it was inappropriate to call him by other names. Which sentence? The man asked with a frown. Qin Shing thought for a moment and replied, Among the people living in this world, some are weak and some are strong. Some need others to set goals for them, and some set goals for others. Some need emotions to support their lives, and some need willpower to support their lives. I would probably choose the latter for every pair of concepts. After hearing that, the man chuckled and said, Qin Shing, it seems that you have done a lot of homework before meeting me. Teacher, it's not homework. I've known you for a long time. It's just that I didn't expect to see you in person one day, Qin Shing replied very sincerely. Before returning to the Qin family, he really didn't expect to meet such a big shot in this life. It seemed that such a big shot was very far away from him, and he could only see it on TV and the news. The man did not doubt Qin Shing's words at all. He said slowly, Qin Shing, I've heard about your story from Ryu and many others. What you may not know is that I've had a lot of contact with your small aunt and uncle-in-law. But today, I'm meeting you for no other reason than Ryu. Teacher, I know, Qin Shing said respectfully. The man sat up slightly, leaned forward, stared at Qin Shing and said, Qin Shing, I heard that you used to have a very beautiful girlfriend. Then why did you choose to be with Ryu later? What's more, the time when you and Ryu were together was very special. It was when your father was in danger. Or, you chose to marry Ryu for a family-style political marriage. Of course, such a marriage is very normal. After all, your father was in danger and needed a strong figure to speak for him. Ms. Song was definitely a person who could speak for him. Even if she didn't speak, it would have a direct impact, right? These words directly made Qin Shing a little absent-minded. He really didn't expect that Song Ryu's teacher would be so straightforward, leaving no room for him to maneuver. Qin Shing was about to say something. The man continued bluntly, "Are you going to deny it? I know that you and Ryu knew each other since childhood, but you left Beijing later because of something. Don't tell me that you had feelings for each other since childhood. If Ryu said so, I could understand. But if it's you, I don't believe it. Others don't know your father's situation, but I do. As for your grandmother, uncle, and uncle-in-law, they don't have a good relationship with your father. Moreover, they don't need to speak for your father on such a matter. So I can tell you that if you think in this way, you are a little too naive, and you won't get what you want." These words of the man were very straightforward and even somewhat ruthless. If it were someone else, he might have already lost his mind. However, Qin Shing didn't. Although he didn't expect that the man would be so straightforward, he did expect that the man would ask these things. Because there was nothing he couldn't ask. "Teacher, I knew that you would ask these things, but I didn't expect that you would say it so directly," Qin Shing said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. "I don't want to deny it. Even if I did, I guess that few people would believe me. I believe that Ryu has also considered this matter, but it's not completely the case." Qin Shing's attitude made the man very satisfied. He was still so elegant and asked very calmly, "Then tell me what on earth is going on." 3 years ago, at the very beginning, I don't deny that I had other purposes in this matter, which was to fight for more support for my father. I also clearly realized that everyone had different ideas on this matter. At that time, I was worried that even if I pursued Ryu with a purpose, she wouldn't agree. But I didn't expect that she would agree. I can tell you clearly that at that time, I didn't have deep feelings for her, and I didn't need to lie to you. However, today I can tell you that everything has changed. The experience of these 3 years made me look down on many things, including those things that my father was involved in. It also made me love and cherish Ryu more, because I know how much she has done for me, and I know how I should treat her in this life. So now I married her, more for love than profit. As for what happened to my father, I didn't ask for anyone's help, but I didn't want anyone to frame him. That's what I did. What's more, my father sees things more clearly than I do. I've talked to him before, and he knows what he's done. He also knows where he should go, and he also knows his role in this storm. Since he already thinks this way, why should I think too much about it? Moreover, he had already made a mistake and taken a detour. This was, he should pay the price. Qin Shing said all that he had said calmly and seriously. This was his true feelings, and he didn't want to lie about this matter. Moreover, he and Ryu knew each other well. This was their tacit understanding. Qin Shing said it word by word. The man opposite him just stared at Qin Shing. After Qin Shing finished speaking, he smiled and nodded his head. He saw sincerity in Qin Shing's eyes, and he didn't think that Qin Shing dared to lie to him. Moreover, even if Qin Shing wanted to lie to him, he had to have the ability. Even so, the man still asked in reply, "Do you think I believe you?" Qin Shing smiled self-mockingly and said, "Teacher, I said this not because I care whether you believe me or not. I just want to say what I want to say. Ryu is too smart. She knows everything, so she never asks me. I don't know how to tell her. I always feel that I owe her too much, but I feel very uncomfortable holding these words in my heart. Today, I feel much more comfortable saying it." The man said calmly, "Then I'll believe you for the time being." Qin Shing was stunned and didn't know what to say. As for what happened to your father, you don't have to explain anything. I've seen him and talked to him. He told me much more than what you said. But even so, he can't escape responsibility. He just has to bear the responsibility that belongs to him, and it has nothing to do with him if it doesn't belong to him, the man said calmly and slowly. This was out of Qin Shing's expectation, but his words gave Qin Shing a lot of information. The most important information was that it seemed that the higher-ups had made a final decision on the matter of the old man. However, Qin Shing didn't know whether it was good or bad. The only thing he could be sure of was that it had nothing to do with the old man. Qin Shing, I have another question for you. Your father is not here now and your uncle is old. You'll be in charge of your family in the future. Do you know how to go? You know very well that many people are watching you. If you dare to make a mistake, you'll be doomed eternally. The man was asking and reminding Qin Shing. This time, Qin Shing didn't hesitate and gave the answer quickly. Teacher, what you've done has shown me the way. But I can't stand at your height, and I don't have your foresight. But I'll try my best to advance and retreat with the country. Hearing this, the man finally showed a sincere smile and said, Qin Shing, you didn't let me down. At this time, the man saw Ryu walking over with the book he wanted. Without saying anything more to Qin Shing, he stood up directly and walked to Ryu. Have you found it? Song Ryu handed the book in her hand to the man and said, Teacher, is this the book? The man took the book and nodded. After turning a few pages he said, Ryu, I have to host a meeting. This time, I won't talk to you anymore. When I have time, I'll invite you to my house and let you taste the cooking of your master's wife. Song Ryu said quickly, Teacher, do your thing. Don't worry about us. We'll stay here for a while. The man smiled and nodded. Then he turned around and was about to leave. When he walked to Qin Shing, he patted Qin Shing's shoulder heavily and said, Treat Ryu well. If you dare to bully her as a teacher, I won't let you have a good time. Qin Shing smiled bitterly. With such a strong background, how could he dare to bully Song Ryu? After watching the man leave the bookstore, Qin Shing let out a long sigh of relief. At this time, he found that his back was wet. Anyway, he had passed the test. Chapter 12:30. An unexpected thing. The meeting was actually very short. To be honest, they didn't talk too much. It seemed that the man just wanted to see Qin Shing, and Qin Shing seemed to have met the man who was his idol as he wished. In Qin Shing's eyes, this man's life experience and ideals seemed to be the ideal of most men. However, Qin Shing felt a lot of pressure. Although the man looked very elegant and easygoing and gave people a feeling that he was more approachable, Qin Shing didn't know why. However, for some unknown reason, Qin Shing felt a suffocating sense of oppression. It was as if Qin Shing's soul would tremble for a few seconds just by looking at his eyes. Qin Shing inexplicably thought of 4 words. The Great Way is invisible. It seemed that this man was like that. More than 20 years ago, he came to the capital city and stepped into the center of power. He experienced more than 20 years of ups and downs and reached the peak of his life. How many people could do that? When the man really left, Qin Shing let out a long sigh of relief. He could not help laughing at himself. Ever since he returned to the Qin family, he had seen many big scenes and all kinds of big shot. However, it seemed that he still made a fool of himself today. He inadvertently glanced at the boss who was bathing in the sun and stroking the cat at the door. It seemed that he had been lying there the whole time and was not affected at all. Qin Shing was even worse than him. It seemed that he had to practice hard. Song Ryu gently put her hand on Qin Shing's shoulder from behind and chuckled. How do you feel when you see my teacher? Qin Shing shrugged and smiled. What else can I feel? My back is almost wet. I read a lot about this senior brother when I was in college. Today is the first time I see him in person. How should I say it? He is more approachable than I saw on TV. But his aura is too strong and restrained. Song Ryu couldn't help but laugh. She covered her mouth and smiled. My teacher won't eat people. Why are you so nervous? I'm lying, Qin Shing said helplessly. Song Ryu didn't continue this topic. Anyway, they had met. At least from the current situation, her teacher was quite satisfied with Qin Shing. Because she knew her teacher well, she could feel it. What should we do now? Or stay here for a while? Song Ryu asked casually. Qin Shing thought for a moment and smiled. Let's solve the problem of hunger first. I'll treat you to a big meal. Then my sister will talk to us about marriage, right? Then let's go. Song Ryu nodded. It was rare for Song Ryu to have a day off today. Of course, Qin Shing took her as the leader. Therefore, Song Ryu had the final say on what to eat. Finally, Song Ryu chose a time-honored restaurant in Beijing, Fengziyuan, which was known as the king of Shandong cuisine in Beijing. The Song family was born in Shandong, so Song Ryu preferred Shandong cuisine. After all, his family's taste had always been the same when he was young. Beijing was full of Shandong cuisine. Why? The reason was simple. Most of the dignitaries in the capital were from Shandong, and Jiaodong was the best, which was Song Ryu's hometown. Qin Sheng liked spicy food, but it was okay to eat this kind of salty and sweet food occasionally. However, the taste of Fengziyuan was really good. It deserved to be the leader of Shandong cuisine in the capital. After lunch, Qin Sheng took Song Ryu to the nearby Sihiyuan of the Qin family. Most of the Qin family lived in the West Mountain Villa, so no one lived here. However, there were maids and servants, who had been with Qin Chang'an for many years. Most of the time, Qin Sheng lived in the number 1 courtyard of Daoyutai, which was his and Song Ryu's nest. He would go back to the West Mountain Villa occasionally or on weekends. Qin Ran and Qin Jing lived in Qin Ran's apartment, which was not far from the company. They could take care of each other and rely on each other. They would go back to the West Mountain Villa only on weekends. Therefore, the Sihiyuan of the Qin family was deserted. Only Qin Chang'an lived here all the time. It was estimated that he would live here even if he came out in the future. He came here today just because it was closer. After all, the place where Qin Sheng and Song Ryu ate was only 10 minutes away from here. Qin Ran and Qin Jing came here quickly. The bodyguards and servants of the Sihiyuan were quite surprised to see Qin Sheng come back. They hurried to welcome Qin Sheng and Song Ryu in. Qin Sheng had nothing to do, so he chatted with them for a while. They all knew Song Ryu. They had been to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family many times before. Now, they more or less knew that Song Ryu was Qin Sheng's fiancée and the future hostess of the Qin family. They all took the initiative to greet Song Ryu. Soon, Qin Ran and Qin Jing arrived, as well as Qin Sheng's cousin-in-law. The Sihiyuan became lively in an instant, and it was more popular than before. Half an hour later, 3 members of the wedding planning team arrived. This wedding planning company was carefully selected by Qin Ran, which was also the top wedding planning team in the country. Of course, they knew the identity and background of the newlyweds this time. After all, Qin Ran had told them before. They talked about the wedding in the living room. Qin Sheng had planned to let Ryu and his sister discuss it, and he would go to the study to read for a while. Anyway, he was not good at this kind of thing, and he trusted his sister's judgment. However, he was stopped by his sister and was not allowed to leave. How could they not worry about their own wedding? Qin Sheng had no choice but to accompany them. In this way, they talked from 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 8 o'clock in the evening. They even had dinner in the Sihiyuan. Even so, there were still many things that they had not confirmed. They agreed to continue tomorrow. It was not until then that Qin Sheng knew how complicated it was to get married, not to mention that it was his and Song Ryu's wedding. The wedding. Therefore, they all stayed in the Sihiyuan of the Qin family that night. In the evening, when Qin Sheng was lying on the bed and reading the news, Song Ryu came out of the shower and saw Qin Sheng's look. She laughed and said, "Do you regret getting married?" Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "No, I just feel that marriage is so complicated. It seems that the more ordinary a family is, the simpler it is to get married. But for a family like ours, marriage is more complicated. There are too many things to consider." This reminded Qin Sheng of those celebrities' marriages. It seemed that marriage was not only a marriage, but also a Vanity Fair. Wasn't it the same when they got married? Song Ryu said with a smile, "If it's too troublesome, let's talk to our families. It's just a simple dinner for our relatives and friends. Anyway, I don't mind." Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "Forget it. After all, my sister has been busy for so long." Of course, Song Ryu was just saying. Even if they were willing, the elders of their families would not agree. This was the top priority of the two families before the spring festival. Song Ryu was sitting on the bed and drying her hair. Qin Sheng stood up and hugged her from behind. He said with a smile, "Honey, when will we get the certificate?" Song Ryu replied calmly, "Anytime." Qin Sheng said happily, "Then I'll calculate the date for us." Song Ryu was a little surprised. Then she thought of something about old Master Qin and wondered if Qin Sheng had learned a lot from him. The next day, everyone was busy with the wedding again. Of course, Qin Sheng and Song Ryu could not escape. As a result, Song Ryu's holiday was used up. Fortunately, on the last day, Qin Sheng accompanied Song Ryu to go shopping, which was the obligation of a boyfriend. They ate, went shopping, watched movies, and had a simple day of lover's life. Song Ryu was busy again. Qin Sheng became a temporarily single dog again. However, he was not as free as before. Mr. Ding had begun to let Qin Sheng gradually take over the new company of the Qin family. After all, Qin Sheng was the real boss. The crisis of the Qin family was over. When Qin Sheng completely took control of the company, Mr. Ding would live in seclusion again. However, Qin Sheng had just been busy in the company for 2 days. An unexpected thing forced him to leave Beijing. When he heard the news, Qin Sheng was confused at first. Then his mind went blank. In the end, he really fell into endless regret. Without any delay, Qin Sheng directly took the fastest high-speed train back to Xi'an. Because a woman, or a girl, who had accompanied him through his whole adolescence, was seriously injured in a car accident and was hospitalized. Now, her life was uncertain. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.